All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today. We are excited to have Eric Duechle with us. He is a 2008 Air Force Academy graduate, a two-time combat veteran at Afghanistan and Iraq, and a two-time Major League Rugby Champion and a servant of the community. So I'm going to turn it over to Eric, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you, Sydney, and thank you, Lawrence, for having me on. It's an honor to be able to talk to you. And it's one of my first times ever talking in this kind of setting, online and in front of a group. But I love the challenge, a little bit nervous, a lot excited. And yeah, I think I'll start my story with Nebraska. So when I was 9 years old, I went to go live with Lawrence and his family out by Offutt in Bellevue. And I went to third grade there, and Lawrence taught me how to catch a football, and felt like it was a very wholesome place to grow up. But then me and my mom and my sister, we moved to Florida, and I finished third grade there, and throughout my elementary, middle school, high school years, moved around a lot. It was a difficult childhood, but I always had this dream to become an Air Force officer. My dad was enlisted in the Air Force for 10 years, and I was really proud of that. He went to Desert Storm, and I wanted to follow in his footsteps. And I did a little bit of research on Midland, you guys out there, private Lutheran college with about 1,400 students. I always thought my school was super small, the Air Force Academy. We had 4,200, but 1,400 is very intimate as well. So I think we're kind of similar there, but we didn't go to the big state school for whatever reason. So I went to college at the Air Force Academy. It was my dream. I did 4 years there from 2004 to 2008. And, at that school, they teach you how to be a warrior, how to be an officer in the Air Force, how to be a good citizen, a well-rounded person. And I left there with a commission as a second lieutenant, started in DC, and we have a 5-year commitment if you do the Air Force Academy. So I just recently got promoted to captain in 2013. And there's this saying where you can do 5 and dive, which you do your Air Force commitment, and then you get out and kind of pivot into something else in the real world. So I was really uncertain of my purpose at that point because I was 27 years old. It was a really good job, but I didn't feel like I was living with a purpose. So I had decided to get out of the Air Force and to kind of go traveling for a year. I'd saved up some money to be able to do that and kind of just figure out, like, where am I going with my life? What is this all about? And, by the grace of God, I got selected to a deployment, which kind of postponed my plans for that about 6 months. And as I was getting ready for this deployment, I got invited to the World Class Athlete Program, which is if you kind of qualify for an Olympic sport, the Olympic coaches can reach out to you and invite you to their program, and the Air Force will actually release you. They don't really release you, but you are moved from whatever your career field is into personnel for 3 years to train for the Olympics. And to me, I was like, wow. I was kind of praying for direction. I thought that I was going to wander around South America and find that, in the rainforest or something. But I had this amazing opportunity. where as a kid, my dream was to be an Air Force officer, but it was also to be a professional athlete. I was thinking football, but rugby was something that I had excelled at over the years. And, obviously, once you're that far as an adult, you can't be an NFL player anymore. I mean, it's much more difficult. So I went on this journey of trying to be the best peak athlete that I could be. And before I go on, I kind of want to pause there to, one, see if there's any questions up to this point. And also, what I see here is like 3 video screens that are all turned off. And I'm wondering if you guys can see me good and hear me good. Got a thumbs up. All right.
We can see you and hear you well here.
Okay. So I got this opportunity to go to the Olympic Training Center, and I was living in LA at the time at LA Air Force Base, and it was a very easy drive down to San Diego. My whole unit was excited for me because in the Air Force, the reason why we let guys do this is it's great publicity, and very few people get to do it. So it's an honor for the military, and the military really promotes excellence in the friendly field of strife, is what we call it when you are on a playing field. So I drive down there and I get my badge to go into the training center and go in, check in through the proxy gate, and I'm driving up and I see the first person I see is this 300-pound, just like huge thrower. He was a shot put thrower, and he was ranked #1 in America. And keep going through, and the Swedish track team had happened to be there when I arrived, and you really got this sense of like, wow, this is a sacred kind of land where everyone was focused, and I got initiated into that. So I was just really happy to be there. I was there for 10 months, and it was really an interesting time for me because I'd been, an officer, and I'd played at the club level in rugby. We had won national championships, but it was very much like a drinking culture. We weren't trying to win the world championship. We were just trying to play rugby in America, have a good time, and make some friends. So this was a huge leap for me to be training in this environment. And that transition, it was difficult for me. And it was difficult not from an athletic standpoint, but from the mental, because to be there, everyone's a good athlete. But I think what really defines people is their dedication, their commitment, their repetition, and their vision. If your dream is to get a promotion, you just don't write it down on a piece of paper and hope it happens. You have to wake up each morning dressing that way, waking up being excited for life, and kind of in self-reflection, I felt like I had made it, if that makes sense. I was like, I'm here, I'm going to the Olympics, we're going to win the gold, and I've already done it. And that was kind of my mindset. So during my 10 months there, I got hurt. I hurt my back. I had a lot of personal issues coming up, and I made it as far as 13th, like ranked 13th in the country. And they take the top 12 guys to go to the Olympics. So I was going into the next season, because the season was about to end, thinking, all right, 13th is pretty good. I want to be one of the top 5 guys so that you're guaranteed to go and you're one of the guys that the team relies on. So, and the coach kind of talks to me at the end of the season, and he says, I see you being a starter on this team, and just have a fun off season, but also remain focused. I'm like, okay, coach, that's awesome. And yeah, that was that. So we started our off season in June, and I had some fun. Traveled overseas, saw some things, and then in July, about mid-July, our head coach got fired, and he was a huge supporter of me. He really liked me, like what I could do. And they bring in this guy from England, Mike Friday, who had taken Kenya from a 13th ranked team in the world to 5th. So a guy that really knew what he was doing, and he played for the England national team. He was a stud. Like, he was someone that was a master at what he did. And so he came in and he kind of made all these wholesale changes to our team, and I got cut, and I was really shocked, because in my mind I had already done what I needed to do, and I almost like I had stopped being hungry, stopped learning, and it was a huge ego check for me to have to leave. And so they said, all right, well, you can go to Seattle, where we have kind of like a minor league team there, or what we call like an Olympic developmental academy. You can go there, prove yourself there, and then we'll reevaluate you. So I was ashamed when I got cut. I took it really personal, and not in like a healthy way, not like a Michael Jordan from Last Dance where he's like, I take things personal and I'm going to dominate now. I took it hard, like rejection, like almost like the girl that you thought you were going to marry breaks up with you at the altar. But I packed up my stuff, moved to Seattle in October of 2014, and I wrote down, and I opened up my journal at a coffee shop, and I was like, man, I feel like I have the tools. So what is it that I'm missing? Like, what is it that they're looking for? And what I wrote down was that I need to learn to love myself. I needed to take care of myself. And when you hurt your knee and they tell you it's going to be 6 weeks of rehab, you do the 6 weeks, right? You don't stop when you feel good or when things get easier, but you got to see things all the way through. And I think that's what love is. Like, self-love is doing what you need for yourself. So I was in Seattle. I was determined to prove to them that I belong there. And so I started training with the club team there in Seattle. We won our league. And then the style of rugby for the Olympics. So right now I play professionally, and that's 15 on 15. The Olympic style is 7 on 7. Same size field, but the game is 14 minutes. So if you can imagine, it's a really fast-paced version of rugby. Almost like sprint football, where it's 7 on 7 versus 11 on 11. It's similar to that. So I train with the Seattle team. We would train in the mornings, wake up at 6 o'clock, go into the gym, built a good relationship with the guys, started working on my fitness, which was my biggest hurdle. And, like, I started impressing people, and I started feeling like, man, I've done it. Like, this is what I needed to do. And we won the the national championship in 2015 for sevens. And our assistant coach was there watching the games. And I'm like, man, I scored in the final. We won. Like this, I must have done everything that they wanted me to do. And so I'm celebrating. And I talked to the coach a little bit at the end. And the conversation didn't really go the way I'd hoped it would have. He basically said, you know, your team is stacked. You should have won. And I'm like, man, kind of just discredited what I brought to this team. But, you know, I was still sure that they would want me back because I was in that pipeline. So this was August of 2015. The Olympics was July of 2016. So I'm like, okay, let me just be patient. Let me wait to see what the head coach has to say. And yeah, so that was kind of the end of the rugby season. And I was living in Seattle, so I was like, you know, let me go back. I don't have any more rugby to do up here, and I can go down to San Diego and be closer to the team and ready when they want me, and I can train down there. So I pack my stuff up, leave, go back, and I'm waiting for this phone call from the head coach. And, you know, it was around a little bit before Christmas, and I still hadn't heard anything. So I went over to the Olympic Training Center to watch them train, and I talked to the coaches there. And, you know, it was clear at that point that they had the team that they wanted and that I was an auxiliary player or, you know, someone on the outside. And man, that was devastating. This was the end of 2015, and it was about to be the new year. And this was my dream, you know, like I was supposed to make it now. I was supposed to, everything was just supposed to work. And, you know, I worked hard. I felt like I did what I needed to do, but it wasn't my time. So the next 4 months, I just like deteriorated, waiting to hear if I would make it and kind of knowing that I wasn't. And so I just switched off at the beginning of 2016 and became really introverted. I lost like 15 pounds of weight. And I was once again at that like rock bottom place of like, well, what do I do now? What am I going to do? And so the Air Force, they removed me from the world-class athlete program, and they told me that you need to go be a flight commander for your progression in the military. You're missing this flight commander position, so we'll send you to Las Vegas. So I go there. My hair was uncut. You know, we have strict regulations on what our hair is supposed to be like. Showed up out of regs, and just with a bad attitude. This was March 15th that I was supposed to report in. And I'm working there for like 2 weeks, and I'm just like, I'm not supposed to be here. I'm supposed to be in the sun in San Diego, but instead I'm like in this top secret facility, which is basically like a dungeon to me in my mind. And I needed to reevaluate. So I asked my boss or my commander, sir, you know, can I take like 30 days off? I really need to like re-vector here because I don't know where I'm going. And so I go back home for 30 days, and I open my journal again, and I'm like, this may be the end of the road for this dream, but who do I want to be? Like, was everything that I'd done and learned for nothing? Or can I take what I had learned from that experience to like recenter myself for the next chapter? So, you know, I went on a lot of long walks, and I decided that, you know, I'm back in the Air Force as a flight commander. I was in charge of 30 people. Let me what God has given me right now, let me do the best that I can. with this. This is what I'm given. So 2016, I tried to be the best Air Force officer I could be. And it was amazing because I had purpose again. I had a team. I had responsibility. And I had that like fire again. So at the end of 2016, I did a really good job. Um, our team won Team of the Year, and I got Company Grade Officer of the Year. Still have this trophy that they gave us. It says CGO of the Year 2016, Captain Eric Duechle with the 505th Test Squadron. And I had never won like an annual award with the military before. And it really was amazing to do that in the same year where January, February, I was just, my back was hurt. I was losing weight. I was about to turn 30. And you just, in your mind, you're like, man, what happened? Because 30, you really feel like you hit a milestone. Everyone tells you, oh, 30, that's, you know, life is going to be different. It really isn't. It's just a number. Things change every year. There's nothing really that special about 30. But you got to kind of get over that in your mind. So I had a great year. You know, I had started rehabbing again. I'd started working out again. And I thought to myself, like, hey, well, what about 2020? You know, what about the Olympics then? And, you know, as you know, it didn't happen. So even things that you plan to happen sometimes don't, as hard as you train or hope for it. But I told myself I'm going to start training again and see what I can still do with my body. And just as I had made that decision, I got a short notice deployment to Iraq. And because I had taken 2 or 3 years in the world-class athlete program, I had missed out on some really important years in the military to grow. And so they had told me, hey, you know, if you take this world-class athlete program, it may be much harder to promote to major or promote in general. And so in my mind, that meant that you had to work harder than everyone else. So, you know, I kind of did that, winning the award. And when this deployment came, I couldn't say no. They were looking for someone like me because I was going to go train, or I was going to go work with the Army Special Forces. And those guys are very physical. They are kind of masters of the, you know, they're magicians of the mental planning, strategy, and tactics. And they also have the physical warrior aspect of being able to make that mission happen. And those guys train so hard. And so in the Air Force, we're not really known for that. But because of my background, I just was a perfect fit for that. So with 3 weeks, they gave me a notice, hey, you're going to Iraq. And so the moment I found out and I accepted, I had to go to training out in Fort Dix, New Jersey. So I went to train there for 2 weeks, came back home, and within a week I was in country in Iraq. And it was really surreal for something, like, for your life to change that quickly, because I kind of decided I'm going to start training for rugby, and then that got taken away. It's like, no, you were going to go do this mission. And you know, that Iraq experience really changed my life, because Special Forces, I was a cyberspace officer, so kind of like an IT manager. And then we also do network attack and network defense against other countries, which makes us, you know, a little special, like makes us operational in that aspect. But you're still on a computer. You're still behind a firewall. You're not like exposed to the evil of war. So I went through a really unique experience where I was the chief of operations out there in the Middle East and coordinating the battlefield, something I never thought I would do. We were doing strikes with drones. We had the Delta Force going in there, doing their thing, and we were managing the war out in Syria. And so I saw a lot of people die. I had never seen anyone die before I got there. And so it was like March of 2017, was put into this trailer and just 6 months straight, 14 hours a day, just behind the wizard's curtain, seeing the truth of what's happening. And we even have CNN up, Al Jazeera up, and all these different news channels up. And we're watching what we're doing in real time pop up on the news. And it was life-changing. And I guess the last thing I'll say about that is, I saw people, like, I knew, like, in 5 hours they're going to be dead, and I'm watching them for like 5 hours, and Intel's watching them. And 5 seconds before they do die is when they finally know what's going to happen to them. But the whole time, we have that knowledge, and they're the bad guys. We were going after ISIS and the Taliban and our enemies. But it was so strange because you're almost like playing God, like that person's gonna die. So that changed my life. You see that even though I'm in this position, no one truly knows when they're gonna die. Only God knows. And life is very precious. And that's kind of, the knowledge that a warrior has. And I know you guys are called warriors, and I thought that was so cool, that's your identity. A warrior is someone that takes action. A warrior is someone that once he decides to do something, he does it. And this is like a warrior in his highest expression. A warrior lives by a selfless code and does things for the service of others. And so, that's why we joined the military. So I had that experience, and during that 6 months, I was like, if I can work this hard for a mission that to be honest, I'd stopped believing in. I'd been in for 10 years, and we were fighting the same war from 9/11, in 2001. Like, literally, this is the war morphed into different countries in the Middle East and different actors and all of that stuff, but it was the same fight, and it feels like we're not getting anywhere with it. So I told myself, if I can work this hard for someone else, what could I do for myself? And I started to believe that whatever I decided to do, I could do it. And I would say that was the blessing of that deployment. Like, I'd never worked that hard before. Didn't know I was capable of that. And I don't think anyone really does until you're tested. But we're all capable of doing amazing things. Everyone sitting there in the audience or in your rooms, you're given a gift. Every single person has a talent. And life is about discovering what that talent is and discovering who you are. I always wanted to find it, but it was not something external. It's like within you. So Major League Rugby was going to kick off in January of 2018. I was in Iraq in June of 2017, kind of having these thoughts, just walking home from my trailer, or the trailer that we were working in. And it was like 2 a.m, and it's a full moon outside. And I'm walking to my bee hut, is what we call it. And I just had this thought like, man, what if I left all of this and chased my dream, followed my heart. And so I reached out to the Seattle team. They said that they were interested in me, and I said I want to do this. I want to be a part of the first professional rugby league in America, and and I knew that if I truly wanted to make the Olympics or the World Cup or anything at the elite level, that this was my time. Like I had to start now. I couldn't wait anymore. I was about to. No, I just turned 31 in May of 2017, and it just seemed like everything was pointing me towards this. This is the time. So I get back October. I was very uh, anxious. I was very like literally my hand was in a fist just from that kind of experience. And I get back. I breathe a little bit. I was a bit upset because we're literally fighting a war over there, and it felt like people in America didn't understand like how hard it was over there for the Syrian people, how hard it was for the military fighting. It's like there was a complete disconnect from the war that's happening there and how people were living their lives here. Um, and you really can't blame anyone for that because we are disconnected from it. Like even right now, I don't know what's going on over there, and I live a comfortable life at this point. But there's some serious things happening at the diplomatic level in the world that we won't know about. But anyways, I don't want to get too much into that. I come back from Iraq upset, but I'm like, sir, talking to my commander, I want to separate. I want to give you my separation orders, and I really want to chase this dream. And I know we worked hard to get me promoted to major, but this is what I have to do. And I had just gotten promoted, or I just got selected for major the month before. So my commander was he was a little upset, but he also understood my heart, and they respected that. So they allowed me to separate at the end of the year. December 29th of 2017 was my last day. I signed my paperwork. And I drove to Seattle to go play professional rugby. And I felt like what had ended in 2016 had now been reborn into this new dream. And so, I got there, had some PTSD going on, had, my past that was still following me, but this new present was exciting, and it was cleansing to feel like I was back on the path of elite athletics. And the season one started a little rough because I hadn't played in 2 years, but by the middle of the season, I had hit my stride again and became a star on the team, and we won our first championship. And they gave us this little token ring, and it felt like I was validated or redeemed, cleansed, just like everything that I'd gone through was worth it at that point. And it was the first year, so it was very hard. There wasn't much medical, there wasn't much benefits, there wasn't much. It was a startup, so if you ever go into a startup, it's everyone has to do everything, and it doesn't work like the way that you want it to, like a good flowing organization. But it's almost better that way because you feel like it's your essence that's in it. So we won the first one, and that was kind of my, like, when the off season started, it was my first chance to kind of feel what just happened. Because I literally went from Iraq, put my separation papers in, packed up, out processed, and then started training with the Sea Wolves. And then, with guys that are 22, 27 that haven't really had life experience, and there was me battling with PTSD and battling with killing a lot of people. And, that off season was hard because I kind of had a moment to stop and think about what just happened. And, the coronavirus, the first lockdown, there was a lot of parallels to that because it was another time where you kind of got off the train of life and you had to sit in that void of who I am and, look back on the things that you've done. And so that first off season, I was like kind of aimless. I was trying to just try things out, try to do things. And when the second season came, it was really good for me because now, like, you had a purpose again. It brought order again. And we competed for that second season. That was a whole journey in itself, but we won. And the city loved us after that one because the first one, no one knew what rugby was. But they were just happy to have a champion in the city. But when we won the second one, the publicity that came with it, the news channels that were following us, it was like something went viral. Something just went big. The mayor had us over to raise the flag at City Hall, and you're like, wow, this is something really special. And people like winners, but people also like just that sport energy, like when the Cornhuskers have a football game, like it's all about the community celebrating, and then you have your heroes too, the football players out there. So that's what we were, this new sport in America. And then we went into season 3, and we were very full of ourselves. We were like, we're back-to-back champions, and we felt like we had deserved third championship. Like, it was just going to happen. And in season 3 in 2020, we had our worst start we've ever had. We went 1-4. And by that point, the media machine was really on us. They were like trying to market us, try to jump on that train. But without the performance to back it up, it was excruciating to have that kind of exposure and to be failing. But, I think for some people, coronavirus was really bad. And for us, at least as a team, it ended our season before like we could get to the end of it. So it was almost mercy. The season ended in March of 2020, March 13th. We were getting ready to go to New York City to go play them. We had a lot of injured players, and the coach was walking around all the guys stretching at the end of training, telling us who was going to go. And he told me, hey, you're going to go to New York and you're going to start at blindside flanker. And I'm like, yes, like I was so excited to prove myself again. And then as we're getting ready in the parking lot to like head home, the team owner comes by and he's like, hey guys, there's this new coronavirus thing going around, and a lot of people, it's kind of becoming a big deal, and so we're going to have to pause the league for a month. And I was shocked because I never thought that like a flu-like pandemic would ever impact my life or our lives. So things stopped, but we were very hopeful and certain that by April or by Easter, we would have beaten this coronavirus and the season would continue on. And, and the president promised that too, that by Easter it would just magically go away. And man, what a crazy time, right? Like people buying up all the toilet paper. They bought all the strawberry jelly at Fred Meyer's, but none of all the other ones were still there. So you realize like things were like people were afraid and things were going crazy. But yeah. So I spent that was the first time I really got to reflect on my military career and the trauma that I went through. I was very distracted. Like it was hard for me to focus because I had no purpose. And I was really questioning like, do I keep playing rugby or not, or who I am? And coronavirus and the lockdown lasted so long that you got to go through these iterations of depression. Um, whatever you deal with stress, I'm sure we all had many cycles of experiencing that through the summer of 2020 when the numbers kept going up and we kept pushing the lockdowns more and more and more. And you're just like, what is going on? But I think around July or August, I just turned 34. So it was May. And I'm like, man, I can't, I know that we can't control what's going on in the world, but what can I control about myself? And so I started grounding myself with my health and training again and reaching out to friends, calling family. I felt like as a society or as a species, we really started turning inwards and working on our hobbies. And so it was a transformative time for sure. And the Black Lives Matter stuff happened, and I had never really had to look at my race identity. And so I started, like getting on that bandwagon of I'm black and there's injustice here and all these things. Man, 2020 was just crazy. But once again, season 4 was about to begin, and my player signing got announced in August. So I was like, all right, I had this time off, hired a personal trainer, and I started training again. And so now we're in February, and this was the end of our first week of preseason. And I had started training back in August, and it has really paid off because I'm in great shape right now. I feel really good. I can be a leader physically, where a lot of guys on our team are younger, so they wait for the preseason to come to start training, and they just don't know that it's like too late at that point. You're like more focused on feeling good and recovering because your body isn't used to all that training. So, I feel blessed. Now it's 2021 and we start the season in 1 month. On the road, we're going to Houston. And that's my present moment right now. That's where I'm at in my mindset. So me, Sydney, and Lawrence we're gonna do it. The first week was supposed to be February 7th, which turned out to be the Super Bowl. And then we were like, we can't do it on Valentine's because we know the students, they're probably gonna have a date or they're gonna be crying because they're single or whatever is going on. But let's wait till February 21st. And I'm really glad we did, because during that time I was very much like, you're trying to challenge yourself with the guys on the team and see where you stand. And now we've kind of gotten through that, and we're on this mission together of whoever starts, whoever's on the bench, it doesn't matter. As an organization, we got a lot to make up for in 2020, and we're all kind of like focused for the future. So I think that was longer than 20 minutes, but that's my story. It was really an honor to share that, and looking forward to any questions that you may have. And hi, Surya. I just saw you pop up, so that was really cool.
Hey, Eric. So good to see you.
You too.
His Twitter page and stuff says he's an advocate for homelessness. Can you tell us about that? Yeah, were you able to hear that, Eric?
It was a little far away. What was the?
So your social media says that you're an advocate for homelessness. Could you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So on the West Coast, homelessness is really bad out here in Los Angeles and San Francisco. So me and my sister, we started a homeless nonprofit called Seattle Compassion Services, and we try to house the homeless. You know, we work with the city and the county, and we just got a contract with the county for 2021, and we've housed 3 people. So it took a year, but it was an amazing first step, and things are pretty tough out here with coronavirus going on, and they're closing shelters because of health concerns, you know, and it's the middle of winter. So it is the challenge of our times, you know, that with climate change and plastic and all these things going on. But for me, this is something I'm really passionate about, and I feel like I can channel my Air Force experience. Sorry, Adobe started updating. So I can kind of channel my Air Force experience into helping a problem here in society. So, but the question about the homelessness. It's something I'm really passionate about, and I plan to move into this career field. Like, this is going to be my thing with rugby at the same time.
Eric, what advice would you give to our 18 to 22-year-old students who are trying to find their way? You've been at that point multiple times in your life. What advice would you give to our students?
Yeah. When I was 20 years old, I really didn't know. It's funny that you asked that. I was thinking about that in the car. Like, when I was 20, I was like, man, who am I gonna be when I grow up? Like, what am I gonna do? Because you see all these adults kind of just automatically living their life, and you're like, wow, what am I gonna be? And so I like reflected, you know, I've become a modern day warrior, and at 20 years old, that's what I wanted to be, but I had no idea if I could do it. Like, can I talk in front of a group of men and get us on to the mission? You know, can I prepare? Can I do all those things? And so I would say, if you're 18 to 22, to trust that you will find your way. You may not know how, but just having like a dream, you'll be surprised that if you just speak it out loud, that you will slowly move to it. You will slowly learn the skills that you need. So I would say to try to be fearless, and even if you have a dream, it doesn't mean that's necessarily what's going to happen, but it's meant to make you develop and move in a certain direction. So I would say have faith that you will be moving towards something. And it is a hard time for everyone at that age, because you're looking at the adults and seeing them just living their life. But yeah, just try to really think about what your dream is. And it doesn't have to be right, but just listen to your heart and try to take steps to move towards it.
All right. Well, thank you, Eric, so much. We really appreciate you joining us. For everyone online, Eric is our first guest speaker in our Warrior Code series, and we will be having 2 more speakers for the months of March and April. And we just really appreciate you sharing your story with us. So thank you so much.
Yeah, Sydney, thank you. And Robert, you have something?
It's kind of an after the fact. So if everybody else wants to bug out, it's not a question. It's more of a comment.
Yeah, let's hear it.
Okay. You have done some amazing things.